So I want you to look around the room for a minute and try to find the most paranoid person here.
I want you to look around the room for a minute and try to find the most paranormal person here.
And then I want you to point at that person for me.
And then I want you to point out that person for me. Point at that person for me.
Okay, don't actually do it.
You don't actually do.
But as an organizational psychologist, I spend a lot of time in workplaces.
But as an organizational psychologist, I spend a lot of time in workplaces.
And I find paranoia everywhere.
And I found paranoia everywhere. Paranoia.
Paranoia is caused by people that I call takers.
Paranoia is caused by people who I call takers. People that I call...
Takers are self-serving in their interactions.
Takers are self-serving in their interactions.
It's all about what can you do for me.
It's all about what can you do for me. Self-serving.
The opposite is a giver. It's
the opposite is a giver.
Somebody who approaches most interactions by asking, "What can I do for you?"
Somebody who approaches most interactions by asking, "What can I do for you?"
And I wanted to give you a chance to think about your own style. We all
when I give a chance to think about your own style.
Have moments of giving and taking.
We all have moments of give and taking.
Your style is just how you treat most of the people most of the time.
That's how your style is how you treat most of the people most of the time.
Your default.
Your default.
I have a short test that you can take to figure out.
So I have a short test you can take it to figure out.
If you're more of a giver or a taker, and you can take it.
If you're more of a giver or a taker.
Right now.
And you can take it right now. Narcissist test. Take a moment to think about yourself. If you made it to step A, you're not a narcissist.
This is the only thing I will say today that has no data behind it.
This is the only thing I will say today that has no data behind it.
But I am convinced the longer it takes you to laugh at this cartoon, the more...
But I'm convinced that the longer it takes to laugh at the cartoon...
we're worried we should be that you're a taker.
The more worried we should be that you're a taker.
Of course, not all takers are narcissists. Some are just...
Of course, not all takers are narcissists.
Givers who got burned one too many times.
Some are just givers who got burned. One too many times.
And then there's another kind of taker that we won't be addressing today,
and there's another type of taker we won't be addressing today.
That's called a psychopath.
And that's called a psychopath.
I was curious, though, about how common these extremes are, and so I surveyed...
I was curious about how common these extremes are.
Over 30,000 people across industries around...
So I surveyed over 30,000 people across industry.
The world's cultures. And I found that most people are right in the middle between...
And I found that most people are right in the middle.
Giving and taking.
They
choose this third style called matching.
They choose this third style called matching.
If you're a matcher, you try to keep an even balance of give and take. Quid pro.
If you're a matcher, you try to keep an even balance. You keep an even balance of give and take.
Quo. I'll do.
Quid pro quo.
Do something for you if you do something for me.
I'll do something for you if you do something for me.
That seems like a safe way to live your life.
It seems like a safe way to live a life.
But is it the most effective and productive way to live your life?
But is it the most effective, productive way of life?
The answer to that question is a very definitive maybe.
The answer to the question is very definitive, maybe.
Now, I studied dozens of organizations, thousands of people.
I studied dozens of organizations, thousands of people.
I had engineers measuring their productivity.
I had engineers measuring their productivity.
I looked at medical students' grades, even salespeople's revenue.
At the medical students' grades and even salespeople revenue.
And unexpectedly, the worst performers in each of these jobs
But unexpectedly, the worst performers in each of these jobs
were the givers.
were the givers.
The engineers who got the least work done were the ones
The engineers who got the least work done
who did more favors than they got back.
were the ones who did more favors than they got back.
They were so busy doing other people's jobs, they literally
They're so busy doing other people's jobs.
ran out of time and energy to get their own work completed.
They ran out of time and energy to get their own work done.
In medical school, the lowest grades belong to the students who agree most strongly with statements like, "I love helping others."
In medical grades, the lowest grades belongs to the student who agree most strongly with the statements like I love helping others.
Which suggests the doctor you ought to trust is the one who came to med school with no desire to help anybody.
We suggest the doctor you ought to trust is the one who came to med school with no desire to help anybody.
And then in sales, too, the lowest revenue accrued to the most generous salespeople.
And then it sells to the lowest revenue accrued in the most generous salespeople.
And I actually reached out to one of those salespeople who had a
salespeople
very high giver score.
who had a very high giver score.
And I asked him, "Why do you suck at your..." I didn't ask it that way, but...
And I asked, why do you suck? I didn't ask that way, no.
"What's the cost of generosity in sales?"
What's the cost of generosity in sales?
And he said, "Well, I just care so deeply about my customers that..."
I just care deeply about my customer. I just care so deeply about my customers.
"I would never sell them one of our crappy products."
I never sell them one of our crappy products.
So just out of curiosity, how many of you self-identify more as givers than takers or...
Yeah, just out of curiosity, how many of you identify yourself as how many of you self-identify more as giver than takers or matchers?
Matchers, raise your hands. Okay, would have been more before we talked about these data.
Okay, it would have been more. It would have been more. It would have been more before we talked about this data.